Hello everybody and welcome to the Year of the Gods number 6 and final event tournament. The format for this tournament is no Genesis, no Etherbots, everything else goes. You must win 2 out of 3 games to advance to the next round, winning with 2 different domains. That is the format. For this video in particular, there may have been a streamer moment where I may or may not have forgotten that I muted my sound on my recording, so my original commentary is useless. I will re-commentate over my original commentary throughout the game, so you have some sound and someone talking into the microphone. However, this is more of a post-mortem than a live reaction. I will try my best to remember what I was thinking at the time. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into those games. Alright, so this round is the round of 256, our first round of the tournament. We are taking on Lexotan. Let's go ahead and get into this game. I'm queuing up with Light, they're queuing Deception, so this matchup is very favorable for our opponent. My list is an aggro Light list, and their Deception list is unknown at this point of the match. So here we see we've got 2 1-drops and a Felid Janissary. So the question is, do we want to get greedy and try to get a better 1-drop than Vanguard Axwoman? The issue with that strategy is if I miss, then I really don't have a play on turn 1 and I need a play on turn 1. So we draw into Thester, which isn't optimized, but we can go ahead and play the Axwoman and the Imperium Pacifist. So next turn we're definitely thinking about dropping the Felid Janissary on to basically buff up the Imperium Pacifist. However, our opponent is going to take away that plan by going ahead and ramming the Vanguard Axwoman into the minion. It just changes where we put the buff. We obviously have to put the buff onto the Vanguard Axwoman. So we'll go face here. We've got a very awkward hand. We've got Protective Benediction, but what we don't have is many minions with Strength 2 or less. We've got Vanguard Axwoman, which is about to die. They play Thester. I play Thester. They play Armor Lurker. Armor Lurker is guaranteed to kill 1 minion. I went ahead and pipped out the Armor Lurker so they couldn't just peel off Thester with the Armor Lurker. I played Skeletal Hoplite so they couldn't just peel. Now they're in a situation where they've got to figure out what trade they want to make. They decide they want to take out the 2/2. Most likely their thought process there is the 2/2 can go easily into Armor Lurker to finish it off. So they're going to go ahead and use Orpheo's Distraction after playing 2 of the Patient Pickpockets. Now I have a situation, and I just want to go as wide as possible here. Questionable line here, but this does buff my minion. I wanted to play Petros to get it out of my hand. We know our opponent has Patient Pickpocket, so whatever I don't play this turn is a candidate for my opponent to steal. So I know they're guaranteed to either get Protective Benediction, Ritual Rod, or some combination thereof. They go ahead, they peel off my minion. The Hoplite will live right here, which is a key thing in the game. And their double pickpocket does go off. So they either have Protective Benediction and or Ritual Rod. Now I have to figure out how do I want to proceed in this situation. I want to, since they've got a 75% chance to have at least 1 Protective Benediction, I'm going to play this turn assuming that they have that. I'm going to take a little bit of a think here because I have a lot of options and lines to do this. One line is just to go face and pray, but I think that that's not really necessarily playing to the numbers. I can actually remove 2 minions on their board, and I'm going to go ahead, apply the buff to the CERN, and what we are going to do here is drop our own Protective Benediction. I could have expanded wider The thing is, if I expand wider, I leave myself exposed to Rapture Dance. And this line right here doesn't leave me exposed to Rapture Dance, but what it does do is it does allow for our opponent to easily remove the Thester. We can see that they've got the Patient Pickpocket and the Armor Lurker, which can easily, the combination of those two, remove Thester from the board. So our opponent does have options this turn. Removing Thester has to be the line, but they're going to go ahead and take a think here, and I think this is a critical turn in the game. Our opponent needs to find the correct line of play here, and I think they failed to do so. So we're going to go ahead and let this rope go out. By the way, this is the round of 256. You see them Protective Benediction on a 1-wide board, which it's just hard to imagine that being the right move. And then what they do next puzzles me even more than the original move. They go ahead, they pip, and they Umber Arrow a minion, and I'm going to get it back. They only remove one minion. They used a lot of resources there, but they didn't accomplish that much. And guess who likes to top deck stuff? Me, of course. So the Prayer of the Desperate top deck. And now the situation a turn ago that looked like we were almost dead lost and this game was going to be completely done. Now we top deck Prayer of the Desperate, and suddenly we have control of the board. We've got two minions that are going to get buffed, but these are two minions that they really need to deal with. A 4/7 armor 1 with Protected is no joke, and suddenly our opponents, they're struggling a little bit here. They go ahead, play the Guild Enforcer, they play the Ritual Rod, which was the second card that they would have gotten from the stealing from earlier in the game. I had no option but to run my two minions into the Guild Enforcer, and now I'm left with a dilemma on what do I think they have. My read is that they most likely could potentially have Rapture Dance. So I pause here, but then realize that even if they have Rapture Dance, CERN still lives, and I need to apply the pressure just in case they don't. Also, Vexing Vicar would survive the Rapture Dance, and playing Vexing Vicar adds durability to the Ritual Rod. Even if they have Rapture, then I'm still going to be doing a lot of damage to their face, and they are still under a lot of pressure right now. So our opponent in a tough spot here. They need to find an answer to the situation. They have the Rapture Dance, which is probably the best card they could have had there. But we have two minions that are going to survive. The Vexing Vicar and the CERN both survive. They go ahead and grab the Rune of Fire, which can provide some value. So here I decide that they did the Rapture Dance last turn. I think it's pretty unlikely that they have it again, but we're just going to push everything to the face. And now I'm going to place both buffs onto the CERN. The reason why I'm doing that is if they have another Rapture Dance, I would like CERN to live. So to kill CERN, they would have to play Rapture Dance and attack with Ritual Rod into CERN. However, if they do that and take 4, then my Ritual Rod plus the Vow of Champions represents lethal. So our opponent goes ahead and plays the Rapture Dance, and they attack into CERN. However, they leave themselves at 3. You can see that I have Ritual Rod here, and we have Vow of Champions as well, so that will secure the lethal and win game number 1 for us, despite queuing in to what I would consider a bad matchup. So after winning game number 1, we queue in with Nature for game number 2. Our opponent has also switched decks into Nature for game number 2. My deck is more of a mid-range variety, and our opponent's list is unknown at the moment. So let's go ahead and get this one started. We are going first, which is optimized, and this list is usually going to play Animal Bond. So here we've got our opening mulligan, and we can see a Blade Fly is not the optimized card to have in hand. We would really like a 1-drop, and we get Pyroshal Beetle. The Beetle works very well with Dagon, and I like Fey Flame in the opening hand. So this is going to be something I fully keep. There's an argument for ditching the Fey Flame Blade altogether, but we elect to go ahead and keep it either way. So we have the Beetle, and the thought process is if my opponent plays a small minion, we can get some serious value out of Dagon. Our opponent does not do that line. Instead, they pass on one and is going to concede the board to our initiative. Now we've played the Jaguar, hoping to still remain in control of the board. They're going to use their pip to go ahead and snipe down that black Jaguar, which isn't the best lightning strike of all time, but it is a line. Now we've got options. They just played a lightning strike, so I think they're less likely to have a second. So I do take a slightly risky line because if they have a lightning strike, we are in trouble. But just GP past there just didn't feel like the correct line. We go ahead and play the Pyroshal Beetle right there. They go ahead and play the Celestial Stag, which will help them with their board presence, and they'll generate a random nature card with the Pyroshal Beetle. So we got a lot of options this turn. Instead, we do something stupid here. You notice I target the Stag with the Fey Flame Blade, and live, I just noticed that was completely incorrect, basically immediately. But there is nothing we can do about that one now. If I had given the confused to the Pyroshal Beetle, that would be confused. It could potentially impact them later in this game. So now our opponent is going to go into the think tank, probably making fun of my idiot opponent just didn't confuse my Beetle when he could have. And I could have, but they go ahead and remove the Badger, and they're going to create their own Badger of their own. So Sing Song Satyr is a card that can buff my already, important Beetle. So that's going to give that 2 attack, which is nice. The Beetle doesn't listen to me, but that's okay. It's still a good Beetle. It did hit one of the minions. It didn't go face, so it's not completely useless. Now our opponent has a menacing board to stare at the moment. We're looking to find a situation to drop Dagon. It would be ideal if we could get another buff onto our Pyroshal Beetle, but of course that's not always a possibility. So our opponent goes as wide as they possibly can, and they're going to go ahead and peel off the Sing Song Satyr from the board. They grab the Form of Power from the Sanctum, and that's going to allow them to remove the Wild Hog. So now here's a turn where it really matters where the Beetle goes. The Beetle runs into their Beetle, which is fine for me because my Relic can go ahead and double pick off their board. I decide to go ahead and buy the Bronze Servant from the Sanctum. We get off 1 durability from their Fey Flame Blade, which is a mild amount of value, and we can go ahead and expand upon our board wide. Board initiative in this matchup is going to be very important to dictate trades throughout the game. So here, I elected to play the Wild Hog. The reason being is if I just did the Badger God Power, their 2/2 Badger is 50-50 to just run in and eat that. Now this Badger on paper has no good attacks. Our opponent's going to go ahead and play Pack Succession. They get an Angry Hippo that goes ahead and eats at my Bronze Servant. And they decide not to attack with the Badger because I gave them nowhere to go for an attack at all. And we can go ahead. We've got an option to Lightning Strike, but we're going to elect not to. This is the correct decision in my book. We damaged our Beetle, which means our Beetle is going to get more buff. We were able to damage our own Dagon, which means our Dagon gets more buff. And we are expanding upon our board presence right here. So the 3/4 Beetle does pose some questions to our opponent. They drop the Jolly Green Giant. attempt to attack with the Badger. The Badger obviously does not land at their intended destination. And then we got draw Chiron. So I would really like for my Badger to hit the Green Giant. Then I can trade the Broccoli and the Lightning Strike for the Jolly Green Giant. And we, of course, go face. Now I'm left with the dilemma of what to do with Chiron. I could give up my Dagon and Lightning Strike to kill the Jolly Green Giant. But instead of that, I'm going to hope the high roll on the Chiron and put it on the Marshwalker. Instead, we put it on the Beetle. Now I realize, well, if I run the Beetle into the Jolly Green Giant, it actually lives, and it could potentially regen even higher. So we go ahead, risk it for the biscuit. We hit the 50-50. Now Dagon does survive, and we have a wide board. We go ahead and buy the Vow of Champions. Now the one thing about that line is if our opponent does draw their second Lightning Strike, they can kill the Beetle right now. If they don't, then that minion is just regenerating every single turn and could provide some problems. They go ahead with a Pact Succession, hoping to hit a 6-attack minion. They fail. They instead get a Bucking Bronco, which only deals 1 damage to the Beetle, which will, in turn, obviously regen that off. Our opponent finds the concede button, and we go ahead and advance to the round of 128.